This is a Brothers WISP number 16. This is the first one we've had most of the guys together in probably a year, I think. Something like that. It feels like anyway. So today, left to right, we'll go kind of chronologically here. Not chronologically, from my left to my right, obviously on the recorded screen here. You've got Justin Wilson, our man from Indiana, and then we've got JJ Boyd over there in North Carolina. Then we've got Andrew Cox over there in Australia. God, that's so awesome. Makes me feel so cultured to have an Australian friend. Yeah, I was watching Shark Week, and so obviously everything's in Australia, and you guys don't have sharks over there. You have sharks. There's somehow the R doesn't make it into the word. Sharks. And this lady insisted on saying shocks every 4 or 5 seconds, so I'd have to repeat shocks right back after she said it. It's killing me. Christy was not happy about it. But then, right here on the right, we've got a new guest, Bryon Jeffers, and I've only known this cat for about a week. Don't know anything about him. He's probably a serial killer. He looks like a serial killer.
Could be.
Yeah. He's got great hair though. Got great hair.
Just got in off the mower, so it shouldn't be too great.
Excellent.
What, under the mower or?
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
So you are from Missouri, correct, sir?
Yeah, otherwise known as Misery, yes.
Misery. It loves company.
I thought they called it Defiance.
Defiance. That's down in the Ozark hillbilly country.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, I guess technically I'm in Tennessee, so you're in good company. We're all rednecks now.
Texas is rednecks too. What are you talking about?
No, we're so cultured. It's ridiculous. Yeah. You know what's funny is I was telling people that that I'm from the South, and they're like, "You're not from the South," and I'm like, "Well, geographically, I'm lower than you." And they're like, "No, this is the Deep South."
Deep South.
So we're in the Deep South here, whatever that means. But Bryon, let's go ahead and kick it off with you. I always like to throw the guests in the deep end, and so I know a little bit about you. I know right now you own and operate your own WISP, and you have for pretty much forever been doing license links for a couple of different commercial organizations. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of, and where you're from, what you're doing, what you have done. Just give us everything.
Okay. Well, this should be short and boring. So, I started out life doing electronics work for a living. Did that for about 7 years or so, and then got more into telecommunications. Ended up working for Lucent Technologies and AT&T along the way. Did a lot of fiber optic work and microwave work, and then left AT&T and went to work for Black & Veatch doing microwave engineering work along with other communications engineering, mainly for large power companies or small municipalities, local governments, counties, stuff like that. And then left Black & Veatch, kind of do some consulting engineering on the side, plus run a wireless internet service business. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
That's the pedigree. So, but you still you do some freelance consulting and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, mainly it's there's a group out of St. Louis that I do quite a bit of work for, have in the past, and actually end up going back and we did like 42 hops of microwave for AT&T. So nothing like trying to escape your former employer and can't do it. So.
Yeah, they tend to own a piece of your soul.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I know what that's like. So, any of the the license stuff you used, what was that like? Were you doing like Dragon Wave stuff or anything we would know?
Well, I have done some Dragon Wave. AT&T world was all big commercial full rack stuff of Alcatel MDR 8000, and most of it was TDM world stuff. So triple DS3, big loop, big. Massive ring of microwave that went through about half the state of Missouri. So, and then when I did engineering work for Black & Veatch for power companies, most of it was Ethernet with legacy TDM as well. They can't, just like any other carrier out there, they can't seem to break that bond with still having some legacy TDM equipment around. So a lot of Exalt. Those 42 hops of AT&T microwave were all Exalt equipment. So I was digging through my archives here to see if I couldn't find a picture. I got a picture of 42 hops worth of Exalt equipment piled up in my third car garage, but I can't find it. It's kind of cool looking. There's a lot of Exalt boxes sitting there. So
what kind of frequency ranges were you usually working in?
most of those 42 hops actually were all temporary, and they were all unlicensed. So most of the licensed work that that we've done is either Dragon Wave. We've done some Exalt. I do some SAF, and recently did some of the new LIGO Wave, PTP 620, I believe is what I think they have a 620 HP series out now. So I really like the SAF stuff. SAF is pretty nice. It's easy to set up. The guys don't gripe about dish mounting or anything like that. Real easy to align. So I'm kind of impressed with the SAF stuff.
So are you more the guy that engineers the solution and then you tell everybody what to do? Or are you actually up on the tower?
I do climb, of course, for my WISP and stuff, but I don't climb for most of the microwave stuff. Now, if I do local microwave work for somebody here around the Kansas City area or something, I'll go get up on a tower or a rooftop or something and do some work there. But when I do my consulting engineering work, it's complete end-to-end solution. I send off the coordination and licensing off to a third party and let them take care of that. And then I spec everything from the dishes to the mounting hardware to anything they're going to need down below for the connection. So
That's cool.
I think there's some sort of like level up in this industry, isn't it? You start off as the one that climbs the towers, then you level up and you get to the point where you're like pointing at other people. No, you can climb the tower now.
yeah.
Was it you occasionally climb so you can remember why you hated it so much?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Get back down in the muck.
I think it's my obsessive compulsive paranoia that kicks in where I just maybe don't trust the new guy or something. I don't know.
I guess it's different because with that contract stuff, that's somebody else's equipment. With a WISP, that's all yours. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so you don't care about their stuff, obviously.
Well, as long as it works and I get paid, right? That's
Well, most of the big microwave stuff is, you can't pull that up by hand. So you have power equipment involved and winches and everything else, and there's not much room for error. Yeah, helicopters and you name it.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. When I worked for Black and Veatch, I did a stint up in Vancouver, and we were doing work for British Columbia Hydroelectric. So we were having to take snowcat rides to the top of mountaintops to look at microwave gear. So that's
cool.
Sounds like
That's
a
kind of
yearly
fun, I
event
guess.
for me.
I think the important question here, though, is did you eat some poutine while you were up there?
No, I did not. But all the waitresses would they've all just kind of like Andrew and his Australian accents. We've got all the Canucks up there and their accents. So it's kind of interesting accent they have.
Crazy. Did they put mayonnaise on everything?
Pretty much. Matter of fact, I think there was mayonnaise on all the tables in the restaurants we were eating at. So.
That's all right. So they
Yeah,
just slathered on top of the table. Where do you put your hand?
Whether they should be able to leave it out of the refrigerator that long, but nobody else seemed to be concerned about that. So.
It's freezing up there, right? It's okay. It'll be good. Hilarious. Well, that's cool, man. So you got free helicopter rides out of it.
Yeah, I had to go through a half a day of how not to fall out of a helicopter and don't ever walk behind one running. So yeah.
Don't stand up either.
Say again, Andrew.
Don't stand up either.
Yeah, definitely. Don't stand all the way up if you're approaching one hot. Yeah, I mean it's kind of the basics that everyone would assume, right?
Don't high five the helicopter.
Don't feel bad. That's how Greg lost his hair.
A freak helicopter accident. Yeah, that was it. Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about your WISP. Kind of how big are you? How spread out are you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, spread out. We cover. We're into 3 counties. I don't know, average county size, I guess. We've got 400 to 500 customers. I've got a lot of rural residential and just recently quite a bit of commercial type customers out there. So we bid on a contract for a rural broadband project for a local county and won that. So that has kind of blossomed into doing more licensed microwave for the county. And I honestly, it started out kind of more of a hobby, and I don't know, a lot of guys I'm sure say that same thing. So
Yeah.
after you get after you get bored with your real job, then you find that you're doing your WISP work 17 hours a day, and yeah. So it's always harder working for yourself. So
I did it the right way. I just I let other people build the WISPs, and then I just consult for them. So I get to break their stuff, but I don't actually have to do anything real.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the right way to do it.
What kind of equipment are you mainly using?
Pretty much ubiquity. Just like anybody else out there, we started out with 2 or 3 different flavors of everything, and settled pretty much on the ubiquity stuff. I've got some what I want to say, the Motorola PTP 600 used to be Orthogon, and now it's Cambium. We still use some of that. A lot of Mikrotik routers and switches and stuff in the network. So
That's cool. So it's funny you say that. Some people, they try a bunch of things and they settle on it, whereas JJ likes to collect every piece of technology ever invented and continue to support it from now till forever. He's got apparently some trash cans up on poles.
Yeah,
Servicing.
some of the SkyPilot stuff.
SkyPilot, there it is.
Yeah.
That's literally how he describes it. Trash cans.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and it performs like trash cans too. Let's see. I took down the last SkyPilot. No, I take that back. I've got one SkyPilot gateway. All the extenders are down now, converted to new hardware. So I've still got the one gateway up, and I think there's like 2 or 3 subs that I just can't seem to find a reason to convert them. Lightning won't strike to anything. It's like the only piece of equipment. What's that?
We're renaming you Oscar the Grouch.
Oh god, I can't wait to get a SkyPilot in Photoshop and coming out of there. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Justin has a picture of a SkyPilot on his blog actually.
Yeah, I did some work for a company that they had a lot of SkyPilot in the air.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I remember one more thing about your WISP that you were telling me just kind of briefly about is that you don't technically own it. Your wife owns it, correct?
Yeah, we built our house here about, I'm going to guess about 8 years ago or so. And at the time, I was still employed by the Big Blue Death Star, and it was conflict of interest to have a company that would compete with them. So it ended up being under the wife's name, and honestly, it's not been a bad thing. I think that may have been part of the reason we actually won one of the recent contracts that we submitted a response to their RFPs. So, a woman-owned business in the state is probably not a bad thing. So,
yeah.
What are they? It's a hub business, right? Historically underutilized business, something like that.
They've got it. It's a classified, I guess, in the state of Missouri. It's just a woman-owned business.
Okay.
I got a pen. Come here, Kim.
I mean, it's really clever because I know working with I've been working with so many different people, but like especially government organizations, they have to submit so much of their work to bid to historically underutilized, which means like woman-owned or minority-owned, and it's kind of a double whammy if you are a female minority. You get a little bit bigger of a nod. It's almost like an affirmative action sort of thing. So I guess technically if your wife owns the business, then you can chase some of those RFPs, which is pretty clever, I think, actually. And then I know a lot of municipalities and government organizations, if you can sell them services once, they just keep coming back to you. So I guess just getting your foot in the door is the hard part. It sounds like
we've got a lot of that going on with some of the counties around here. We started off doing just internet for like the Department of Social Services, and then it just escalated. Now we do the internet for pretty much every government building in this county, and then they started doing a lot of fiber, and then they called us up and said, hey, can you do anything with this fiber? And we said, well, actually, yeah, we've got a fusion splicer, and we can help you guys out. So but it's the truth.
You're supposed to say fiber. What's that?
Yeah, we do it with no wires now, people. But yeah, JJ cracks me up. Just one day decided he was going to do fiber stuff, so here he goes and gets a fusion machine, and he's already been splicing. I saw some pics of his work, man. It looks professional. I'd pay him to come do some of my stuff.
All you gotta do is watch YouTube videos and you can figure it out.
The machine does all the work. You just put them in there, right?
Yeah, you just.
Isn't that how we learn most of it? Just Google it.
Yeah. We all have PhDs in search engines.
That's the way to do it, though. That's the way to do it. So
I was going to say, it's interesting that everyone's mentioning all the sort of, like, you guys refer to them as county contracts and things like that. We have similar sort of things here where we have different areas that are governed by their own councils. And similarly, we've had a number of small projects, like the company I work for does a lot of free wireless at council provided caravan parks and things. And then after that, we did a good job of that, and they came back and said, hey, we want you to now do all our libraries as well. And over time, this, what was initially just kind of an interesting sort of little side project for us, has become, we're doing an entire council area now where they're like, we just want wireless like up and down the public areas, and because of that, you then get the next council over hears about it and they go, well, we want to do that too. We don't want to be left out. So
absolutely, yeah, I know, because those
on.
I know here the government organizations, if they see anybody else do it, they don't want to do the legwork. They'll just ask those guys what they did, and then like, oh,
send us your proposals and.
You already did all that hard work. Can we borrow that? Great. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we spent months going to to council meetings and all of the things that go along with it, and answering 10,000 questions and doing PowerPoint presentations that put everybody to sleep.
Dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Exactly. But it paid off in the end, so we're extremely grateful for all of the opportunities that we've had in the last year or so.
And so long as you're actually doing what you're supposed to be and what you told them, then it's easier for them to remain with it rather than going out and trying to retender things every second year or whatever. So.
Well, and one of the biggest things with a lot of these government entities is, they either see the need or they have to be almost educated on, hey, why do I need this? There's not much in between. They either come to you or you have to go to them and convince them.
Yeah, especially if you have like bullet points that you can spoon feed them that they can then relay out the chain. That sounds great, and that's the easiest way.
You just give them your slide deck and take these.
It's you know what, and I watched who was it? Ubiquity had this webinar today about basically selling educational institutions on Unify or whatever, and so I tuned in just to listen. I didn't catch the beginning of it, but I caught some of the end stuff, and some of it actually was pretty good. And while I'm thinking about it, one thing here for us in the States, sorry Andrew, is that we have this thing called E-rate, which is apparently this government subsidy for schools where you can, I think the government, depending on where you are and how you rate, I'm not exactly sure on everything because I just found it today through this webinar and then starting to do research on it, is that you can get somewhere between 20 and 90% discount on your telecom services as well as equipment, depending. So like, especially if you're in a poorer school, you get elevated service, so you get access to the money first, which is really interesting.
In our region, the cable franchise agreement was, for lack of better words, they were convinced to give all the schools around here fiber access as part of the cable franchise agreement for the cable companies. So around here, infiltrating anything to do with school is impossible.
Even for backup?
What's that?
Even for backup?
Yeah, their schools, I mean, they don't need backup. They just send them home. It snows, they send them home. It rains, they send them home.
Holidays.
Yeah, it's just that's a paid vacation day for the teachers, I guess.
Right.
I didn't think about that, because I know like the schools here, they're doing all the schools I'm working with, especially they're all charter schools, and so they're doing everything in the cloud. Because Google gives them free docs and all that stuff, so they just save everything to Google Docs. And they use the Google email, so they have virtually no resources in house. So if their internet connection goes down, they're kind of dead in the water.
I have a client. They did the E-rate thing, and they put up, I think, 3 complete 11 gigahertz license links. And I know it was a kind of win-win for both them and the school. I don't know much of the details, but I don't think either party had to pay out much money to do this. And I think it works out where the it can only be school traffic across these links.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think there's a lot of weird things you have to adhere. Not necessarily weird, but just very specific things.
And at the end of the term, the my understanding is if the school wants to upgrade to something else or whatever, the ISP then owns that licensed equipment.
That's interesting.
So I mean, I could be wrong about that, but that's the way I understood how it worked. Is hey, if we want to upgrade the other gear, I'm sure there's some sort of disposal process, since it's government funded money, but they were saying that at the end of the term or whatever, that they're fully expecting to have 3 11 gigahertz licensed links.
Interesting. I know I heard some other things like if you use it to buy telecom services, you have to actually have some kind of web filtering on there.
Yep.
And then I was talking to one of the charter schools because they apparently kind of looked at it, but what most of these little school districts have to do is they have to hire a consultant to come in, develop a technology plan for them, and help submit that, and then after that it goes through some kind of approval process. So once they actually hire a consultant in to do all this work, they kind of start to lose those savings. But I mean, if you think about these charter schools, the average number of students are somewhere between 20 and 100. So I mean, they're very small organizations, so it makes sense. So what I'm going to try and do is come up with kind of a template that I can just pretty much publish and apply across the board. All you have to do is just come up with like a map and say these are the access points we want, stuff like that, and then have that be submittable. That way the schools that just can't afford it can just fill in the blanks and then go with it. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, time and cost savings for sure.
Oh yeah, because I mean, they already have me doing a bunch of work for these guys, so I might as well actually make something.
I used to be on the school side of technology before, and it was crazy the amount of money we spent on studies and consultants and, training and stuff like that, we had one consultant come in for a Wi-Fi project. I mean, this has been 7 years ago when Cisco access points were pretty much the only game in town. And they came in, and I think just for the for the study, where to put the access points, stuff like that, it was something like 15 grand, just for paper, basically.
I'm getting
So
jilted.
there's our third option for Jay. What have we done? We've done getting government contracts is good money, getting schools, or being a consultant.
All right.
What's next? What's our fourth?
I know. I'm getting ready to pad my resume, though. That's all I know. That's brilliant. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
But,
you guys are talking about getting local business and stuff. We approached the city here where we live at in Excelsior Springs, and it took me, gosh, I don't know, better part of 2 years, maybe close to 3, before I could actually get in front of the city council with approval of the city manager to, try to establish a contract with the city. And we ended up with a 5-year contract with the city, and we provide all their internet service. Initially, they didn't want all of their internet service over on us. They wanted to keep some of it on their legacy local LEC provider. And after they dropped service for a few days in a row, they decided to move everything over to us. So, that's always good business. You don't even have to advertise for yourself. So
How we got the foot in the door with one of the municipal governments was we bought a tower that a lot of their emergency communications hardware was on, and then they started listening. So
Can you imagine that, right?
yeah,
Why exactly did they start listening?
Yeah. We do a lot of work with the public safety folks around here. They have their own unlicensed, I think it's Proxim microwave that forms kind of a half ring around town, and they backhaul all of their analog audio, voted receive audio for their radio system on it. And
are they running those? What are they? The Radwin, it starts at TDM. It's some kind of MUX something. Let me look those up.
yeah, these are actually they use a Proxim. I think it's like when I worked with them, they were Western Multiplex Lynx radios years ago, and of course Proxim bought them, and they're just a single T1 radio, but they've got a channel bank on them, and they break the audio down into channels in the channel bank, and they use E&M circuits for the keying and the voice, so it's old school.
Gotcha. Yeah, we have a unique situation with one of the situations with some emergency communication stuff, because all they're doing is they're sending, it's probably, I think it's G729 audio across a link, and they're using these, I think they're called RadMuxes, or I'll find the name of it here in a moment. But it essentially uses Ethernet, and then it starts I think a TDM across that. But we've found it impossible to use it with Ubiquiti hardware, so we kind of got thrown into this situation as one of those, you do the internet here, and we source this solution from some other vendor. You fix it, and
Now, why do you find it? Why do you find it impossible to use it with Ubiquiti? Does the TDM not work?
correct.
Yeah.
So it basically just continuously drops the audio stream. It's just a bunch of UDP traffic that's running inside that stream. So we've got several solutions, because it's just the tone audio, when the pagers go off for the fire people,
Right.
and everything. So we engineered a solution, but it's not been certified by all these different governing bodies. So we found this to be a challenge that we've not overcome yet.
So the little muck spits out everything as UDP, and the Ubiquities were eating it or something?
I don't know. They're just these. Let me find the exact.
It's like a pseudo TDM circuit that it creates across there.
Correct.
Yeah, and the problem with, well, if you're just sending audio and tones and stuff across it, it shouldn't be an issue. But what a lot of public safety radio systems will use that TDM for is timing, and you can't do that across IP. It just doesn't work. I mean, even though you've got a TDM interface there, the IP causes the timing to be all out of whack, and there's no way to keep it, within its normal, true timed realm like standard TDM stuff is.
Right.
So.
Yeah, the radio has to be designed for TDM, right? I mean, it has to be specifically, geared toward that. I remember working with some of the Sergons that, that was their selling point is, it does work, TDM, and I never understood that, and, it finally, became a little muddy for me, and, okay, I understand that it has to be designed.
Yeah, I've got a lot of mud over here, trust me. I sift through it every day.
I can't
Because
find
basically the main issue is what you're getting, like out of order packets, and it's not.
Yeah,
Okay.
tons of out of order, to the point where the audio gets so garbled and it won't even. So they're sending a lot of tones that, like these tones, when they've got this computer system that generates a carrier, and it's always sending that carrier up to the mountaintop in this case, and whenever let's say fire department 1, needs to be alerted that some building is burning down. They they key up something on their computers, and then it sends a specific tone. It's I don't have the specifics of how the tones are encoded, but in front of me, but the tone gets basically just sent into the repeater, and then everybody's pagers that are tuned to only decode that tone, then goes off. That way you don't have the entire county knowing that a house is burning down for fire department number 1.
Yeah.
So the solution that we have is, instead of just modulating this tone all the time and sending these tones as audio, let's just generate the tone natively on the far end with, send up a TCP command that says send tone 5, and then it sends it out. And it's easy to generate these, DCS tones to break the squelch. And us being, analog and digital radio guys, it's not something that's impossible, but it is, something that's not well documented, because we made it on some Arduinos and some tone squelch boards. So
Yeah, be very careful there. You'll be like the microwave guy. That's voodoo magic stuff. It's crazy.
Just
Nobody
build
knows
your
how
own
that stuff
system.
works. Yeah, it's magic.
Well, all you have to do is be the first guy to patent it, and then everybody will license it from you because it is magic.
Yep.
And they don't want to have to figure out how to do the magic.
we keep all the magic right here.
That's right.
So,
Excellent. So let's see. I know. Let's cover something real, which is something we almost never do. Is Justin was talking about communities.
BGP communities.
Yeah. I'm sure Andrew's lighting up because he just recently acquired a specific certification that endows him with the ability to throw on a cape and then save the day as far as routing goes, right?
No, the MTCRE doesn't even cover BGP. It does everything up to. It's the MTCINE, I think it is, that does BGP. So, I mean, I've played with them myself anyway, and we have a couple of our upstreams that use various BGP communities. But yeah, it's not actually in the Mikrotik certified routing engineer course.
That's funny. Yeah, I took the MTCRE like 3 years ago, but I couldn't remember what was in it. I just thought it had everything. That takes all.
Do you want to give us a brief overview of what BGP communities are, Justin?
I was hoping Greg would.
Sure, I'd love to. So BGP, being Border Gateway Protocol, is basically it's the protocol that runs the internet, right? It's the reliable communication between devices. So regular routing protocols like RIP, I say that's regular routing protocol, even though it's not. And then you've got something more effective like OSPF. What those basically do is they in an internetwork, they tell you how to get from one place to the other. OSPF builds a link state database that basically gives him a complete image in his area of what all the hops look like, and then he computes his best path to all those places, right? So it's really made to work inside of your network, inside of your building. That's what OSPF does, the router to router, all that good stuff. Well, BGP takes a step back and looks at it kind of from a bigger perspective. So BGP looks at it from autonomous system to autonomous system. So if your entire network connects to the internet, we look at your whole big network as a single autonomous system. So we don't think router to router in BGP, we think autonomous system to autonomous system. So it's
Network to network.
exactly from large group to large group. So in BGP, you get assigned an AS number, autonomous system number, and that's yours for global routing. So in the global routing tables, if I want to know how to get to something, I don't look at hop count. I look at how many autonomous systems I have to actually jump through to get to you. And so I can kind of get a bigger map based on that. And so once we have kind of that internet table created, everything just kind of smoothly flows, right? If one autonomous system goes away, you'll reroute for another one. If you have multiple upstreams, or if your upstream provider has multiple paths out. So how do we affect that traffic once it leaves our network is kind of usually where communities are used. I mean, they can be used for a multitude of things. But communities are usually used, say, I'm just some organization, and say for instance, when I was working for the data center, we connected to multiple upstream providers. Well, if I wanted to affect that traffic in one way or another, sometimes I could tag certain routes in LRI before I send it out with a community string, which is just kind of an arbitrary number that gets tagged onto the back of, say, our route that gets sent up. And say an example would be a triggered black hole is a good one. So if you're at my data center, if I'm getting attacked by somebody, right, they're doing a denial of service, and say I've only got, I don't know, a 50 megabyte link or megabit link going upstream. If somebody's hammering me with a denial of service and they're consuming all of my bandwidth, there's nothing I can do. Even if I have a firewall in place, they're still fire hosing me, and I'm basically dead in the water. Well, with like a triggered black hole, I can basically say, oh, this is the guy who's attacking me. He's coming from this subnet. So I can attach whatever community string, say it's 666. I attach that to him, his route, and I send that back to my upstream. Well, the upstream will see that community, recognize it, and they'll stop that guy from sending, that subnet from sending me any traffic. So no longer am I getting denial of service. It's actually getting stopped upstream. So that's one of the things you can do with community strings. We also would internally, our routes inside, we would tag certain routes with community strings, and if it had, say, a community string of 90, we would redistribute that in OSPF. But if it had a community string of 100, we wouldn't redistribute that in OSPF or vice versa. How else have you guys used those, Andrew?
I was going to say, so basically what you're saying, you've got the routes that you're handing from your BGP routers or your autonomous system to another one. So the BGP community is simply a value that's attached to the routes that you're sending to your BGP peers. The values themselves don't have any special meaning. It's
Correct.
just a number. But based on those values and an agreement between you and another provider, you can perform different functions around those. So a good example of one we use here in Australia, and you probably use for other purposes yourselves, a lot of the internet exchanges here will tag routes from specific states with specific communities. So when you see a bunch of routes coming in, you can actually look at the communities that are coming over those and determine which state that route has actually come from. So if you're peering in multiple locations, you might want to say, well, this state, we're already peered over here, so we don't want to receive those routes. So based on the community that's attached to them, you can create your own rules and say, I want to drop those routes, or I want to make them a lower preference, or things like that.
Yeah.
The community itself has no value until you assign a meaning or a purpose to it.
I believe community strings are considered an optional attribute in BGP, so you can choose to pass them on or not. So it's entirely up to you if you even want to accept them.
Yeah, the thing I come across a lot of times is someone will say, well, I understand, how to pad stuff, how to, influence local preference, stuff like that. Why do I need a BGP community? What is that going to do that I can't do, by influencing, normal BGP attributes? And I think, with the community strings, it's basically, okay, I have this that triggers this. By having one statement in your, having a community, you can, basically it's almost, and guys, correct me if I'm, being oversimplified here, but it's almost like triggering a script. It's almost like a BGP script. I'll pass this community on to you, and this community triggers these actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the point. Like you can do whatever you want with that. There are BGP community values that are more commonly used. Like one of those black hole ones. I don't know if this is the same in the US, but in Australia, the community 666 is normally used for black holes. It's just someone decided that was a good idea, and everyone else thought that's kind of funny. We'll pick up that too. So
yeah, a lot of people use 666 here. There's also, I just thought of another time I had to use one. Quest, who's now, they've been bought. They're not Quest anymore. Who are they now?
Is it CenturyLink?
CenturyLink? Is that who bought them?
I think that was the third acquisition.
I can't remember anymore. But they do reverse path on all of their routes. So if CenturyLink doesn't receive a valid route from you for something, they won't accept it to come back around. So for us, we were doing pre-pending on going out one peer and blocking it from going to Quest. So when Quest would see us trying to send from that subnet, since we weren't technically sending the route, they were dropping all that traffic all of a sudden. So what we had to do was send the routes to them, but add a special community that says, here's these routes, but don't advertise them out to anybody else. So that was one of the instances we used in there as well. So yeah, I guess that's communities in a nutshell. I know in Cisco, to use those communities, you'll use like route maps in your BGP peers and stuff like that, and then your route maps will actually look for community strings and then interact, or rather react on them. In Mikrotik, I did some triggered black hole stuff where I just used route filters to apply a community string and then send it out the door.
And with communities, whoever you're passing the communities to has to support it.
Right.
So it's like Andrew says, there's some standard ones, but I think many of these providers, they if you go on their websites, they say here's the communities that we support and what they do, and that's it's not exactly universal yet.
Yeah. If you're lucky, your service provider will have like a list of public communities that they accept and the effects of each of those communities. So whether it's black holing or pre-pending their own AS onto that for you, or just changing preferences and things like that as well. So
yeah. Going out the door, I've only had to use it a handful of times going out the door, but internally we used it quite a bit for route redistribution inside our own organization. Excellent. So do we put that one to bed?
I find it.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I was gonna say I find it very useful just for being able to tag things. Like as I said, the state thing, or even down to specific areas. Just having the communities on there, so it's easy for someone to see at a glance. Because if you're passing internally, you're using the same AS, but it's easy to see based on the community where that the routes are coming from. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I guess as an example, inside your autonomous system, inside your infrastructure, if I have 5 routers together and I tag an autonomous system onto something here, that's going to carry throughout my entire infrastructure. So they'll see that community string over here that we tagged onto it from over here. And so I can react upon it all the way over here. If you think about it in OSPF, there's no way to tag a route and have that route follow it all the way through. None of that happens. But in BGP, I can actually have that follow all the way through and react upon it on specific routers if I want to. So it's kind of cool. Yeah. So let's completely shift gears. Since we have JJ on here, and he's always doing crazy stuff, but we never get to talk to him. One of the more recent things that just kind of blew my mind is just JJ was just bored one afternoon and then took some pennies and some chewing gum and he made an SDR for ham radios. And I wasn't precisely sure. I mean, most guys have heard of SDR, software defined radio. And in theory, you know what that means, right? It's a radio that you can configure in software to do things, to work on different frequencies. But ultimately, I had no idea how or when you would use these things or why you would use one, really. And so JJ really enlightened me and it kind of got me excited, and I think I'm going to try and move into some of that ham radio stuff because this is really what he built it for. So I'm going to let JJ take over because he absolutely knows what he's talking about, and I'll just ramble on. It'll be ridiculous.
Well, first of all, I want to thank, if any of the people that have also been working on the project with me watch this or hear it, I don't want to take full credit. So, I've got Sam, Greg knows Sam. I think Justin's met Sam, and I know Andrew met Sam when we were in Vegas. we've been working on that together. We've also got another hardware engineer that we're working with. His name is Bob. Really one of the most brilliant microcontroller and hardware engineers I've ever seen in my, or ever met in my entire life. And then there's some open source software that we're kind of building up off of out there, some drivers and some other things, but and some open hardware designs that we've kind of taken inspiration from. So to take the entire project and say that we basically took it and kind of commercialized it and got away from hand wound coils, and we engineered a solution that could be built by a robot, and it's all surface mount, none of the through hole 1970s circuit design. We fast forwarded to 2013 and are built, have designed something that can be built by a robot. With all that being said, ham radio was my first love with technology. I was introduced to it some years ago. In ham radio, you have these guys, they're called Elmers. For those of you that have never been around amateur radio, an Elmer is somebody that got you into it. So if Greg, if you pursue and get your license, I will be your Elmer, which is really bizarre for me because I never thought of myself being in that role. But he introduced me to it. He gave me a book and said, study this, and you'll really enjoy it and you'll learn a lot. And so I read through the book and I was like, yeah, that sounds good and all, and he said, okay, if you go get your technician license, then I'll give you a radio. And then he showed me, a lot of things that we could do. And I still wasn't that interested because, I'm a computer guy. So, and then he showed me digital modes, and then I was addicted. So it became my first love with technology. Just different digital modes. That's how I know a lot of the coding theory or how I understand coding theory like I do, all the way down to PSK, because this stuff that we use every day and take for granted is largely based off of things that hams have pioneered, decades ago, with all this, OFDM and QAM16 and all these different modulation schemes. Hams have been tinkering with this stuff forever. But going back to the software-defined radio, in a nutshell, the radio will receive from 1.8 megs. It's documented from 1.8 megahertz all the way up to 30 megahertz. So for people that are into amateur radio, that's pretty much all the HF ham bands, with the exception of 6 meters, which is kind of technically not HF. But anyway. So for example, if you take let's just take $1,000 ICOM amateur radio rig that you go out and buy from ICOM, like an ICOM 7000 series something or another. That radio is going to cost you a good deal of money to have the performance to receive these signals from all over the world. And with our version, or with any SDR, not just our version, you have the direct conversion receive capabilities of a very expensive radio. So you can copy digital modes for, like in our case, we've got this $100 gadget. And so when I say digital modes, hams, again, there's actually an Australian who is pioneering digital voice. So like a single sideband carrier, I know I jump all over the place. It's just who I am. I can't help it. But when you're talking on HF frequencies, you're usually talking on a single sideband carrier. That consumes 3 kilohertz of spectrum. So that 3 kilohertz is, when you're having this conversation, is ultimately being modulated and consumed with an analog mode. Well, there's this new mode called FreeDV, or freedv.org is the website that you can go to and check it out. freedv.org. Basically, there's a bunch of hams out there that have come up with a new mode, if you will, of doing digital voice communication over HF. So the codec is called codec 2, and with this codec, you can do voice grade communications on HF frequencies using about 1.2 kilohertz of spectrum, or at about 1400 bits per second. So you're basically doing what you're doing with like G729. If you're doing VoIP, it's about 64K of throughput. But you're doing it with 1200 bits per second. So it's really revolutionary. And hams have pioneered this technology. And you can, FreeDV is a modem with the codec built into it. So with our software-defined radio, you could just buy one or build one or whatever, acquire yourself a software-defined radio, put the software on your computer, and you're doing all the advanced DSP inside the computer. So
you don't have to actually have tuners and things that are resonating at such and such frequency. The software takes care of all that before it sends it out.
Well, that's not entirely true, because you still have to worry about your physical realm. So you still have to worry about, like, okay, you've got an antenna out there, and that antenna's impedance is whatever it is. Let's just say it's a really long piece of wire. Let's take a 75-foot piece of wire, for example. You still, if you want to transmit on that piece of wire, you have to do impedance matching. Basically, so that the transmitter is sending all of the, the power that is generating out of that wire as it's intended to do, and not reflecting it back, into your equipment. If you have impedance mismatches, if you don't tune the antenna. Now, this is only if you're transmitting. If you're just copying other people's signals, you don't have to worry about it so much, because, you don't have to worry about it at all. You'll just have, 75 foot of wire, and you may not be perfectly matched. So your signal may not be as strong coming into your receiver as you would wish it to be, where if you were to match it, your signal would come up. So you still have to worry about the physical side of this. We can't change physics. So you still have to worry about the antenna and the matching of that. And again, largely if you're going to transmit transmit a signal out of your, of your station. Where if you just want to copy it, there's specific frequencies, especially at 20 meters. You can pretty much work anywhere on the globe at 20 meters, and 20 meters is about 14 megahertz. In frequency. So, we spend our days and lives working up at 5.8 gigs and 3 gigs and 2.4 gigs and, way up there in the band. This is at the bottom. These are signals that, a lot of amateur radio operators, if you go on YouTube and just, do a search for codec 2, they've made contacts, thousands, about 3,000 miles, 2,500 miles, on a watt or less with a piece of wire and FreeDV and codec 2. So codec 2 uses, I think it's QPSK16. It basically modulates 15 PSK carriers. And then if you lose a couple of them, then you can still, your audio still survives. So that's the mode that I'm most interested in, and that was kind of the catalyst for us to make the 3dB SDR, was to ultimately introduce younger generations to amateur radio through digital modes. So I guess
the SDR is basically I don't want to say the poor man's radio, but it's the affordable radio. You don't have to go out and spend $3,000 to get this the same thing, right?
Yeah, you can get the performance out of it that you get out of a much more expensive radio. And there's a lot of SDRs out there now. Like, a lot of people may have seen the Fung Cube dongles, or these little DVB SDRs. It was originally made to copy. I say copy. That's an amateur radio slang word, but to receive digital video signals. Like terrestrial digital video. That's being broadcast from your local stations and things like that. Well, they found that it's just, sending, it takes the RF and then sends it to an A to D, and then that A to D in this case is a sound card, and then they were just popping that in, and you get an I and a Q channel, and you decode that with your software. Like HD SDR is one that we use, Power SDR. These are all some of them are freeware, some of them are free commercial programs, and some of them are just outright open source softwares.
So
HDSDR,
JJ,
sure.
so so what you're saying is basically like an SDR radio in itself is like going out and buying like a Swiss Army knife rather than buying your flathead screwdriver and your knife and your spanner, all the ones that are made for their own jobs. It's the one that can do everything okay. Is that
Exactly. And I would say it's better than okay. It's more like having it's more like, I don't know, your Swiss Army knife is a really good analogy. It's, um, it's, it's just emerging. I mean, the concept has been around a long time. It's just our computers and the software and just the whole effort hasn't been organized enough to be able uh, to
there's still
properly
ideas
execute
that
it.
people haven't thought of yet that they could?
What's that now?
You basically what you're saying is there's still ideas, like there's the platform there. People just need to come to it with more ideas about what they can and can't do. Like there's no limit on what you can do with an SDR radio other than what you can come up with. So
Exactly. The software is still being written, and so since you're not locked into anything, you've not spent millions or billions of dollars on building your own silicon that does this one thing. With a software-defined radio, if you want to do something else, then you just write the software and it does that new thing that you want it to do. For example, if you want to, if you want to write an OFDM modem and use codec 2 on that, then go do it. There's nothing stopping you other than the knowledge.
Hey, JJ, has
Sure.
has anybody taken the FreeDV that came out and put it on a Raspberry Pi or anything like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. We have actually done it on a BeagleBone.
Oh,
Um, Another version of our software-defined radio that we've been working on or developing, I guess you could say, has its own audio codec on board, so it's kind of got its own analog to digital. The reason that the first model, or a lot of them, we've omitted an A to D or a sound card, if you will, is because somebody might go spend $200 just on a sound card that does 196 kilohertz of spectrum. So here's another thing. To get a pan adapter traditionally, a thing where you could see a lot of spectrum, this is another amazing thing about a software-defined radio. Let's say I'm sitting and listening to a conversation or some Morse code or a digital signal, whatever it may be, at 20 meters. If I've got a nice A to D, or in this case, a nice sound card, it's the same thing in this case. Um, I can see right at 200 kilohertz of spectrum. And if you look at the amateur band plans at 20 meters, that's right at that's over half of the entire band. So within that 200 kilohertz, I may have 25 or 50 different conversations, or 10 conversations, whatever the number of the modulators are, but I can see them all. Like I see the spectrum, just like when we do a spectral scan. Um, uh, when we're sitting there watching the spectrum, we're watching emitters. Like on the Ubiquity radios, we do a spectral scan and we can see what's going on out there. Well, there's one of those on the screen at all times, and if I see a carrier come up, I can click on it and then tune into that one. Or if I see one 100 hertz up the band, or 200 hertz up the band, I can just click on it and bam, I'm on that signal. I can hear it. And you can also record the spectrum, 200 kilohertz of it at a time. Obviously, we as humans can only listen to one conversation at a time, but my computer's sitting there listening to 200 or 196 kilohertz of spectrum, and in that spectrum there may be 20 different conversations going on. There may be some digital modes being worked. There may be 10 or 15 Morse code transmissions going on. I mean, I've been tinkering with it in HF, but you can do VHF and satellites, and the next version of the SDR that we're working on goes up to a gigahertz, which would let you copy all the satellite, the amateur satellites and things like that as well.
Hey JJ, hang on just a second.
exactly.
I think Andrew's gotta cut out. He's For us, it's the middle of the night, but for him, it's his lunch break, I believe.
I got you.
I was just going to ask you, JJ, so how much are the NSA paying you to develop all this?
Nothing, but it is kind of funny. You know, you've met Sam, and
That is very fitting. You're right.
yeah, there is some history there.
Yeah. So Andrew from Australia, we really appreciate you coming in, kid.
Thanks for having me, guys.
As always, I love hearing your accent and speaking to you, but I spent way too much time talking and not listening.
We're not done, Andrew. Or JJ.
Okay.
Catch you later, mate.
We'll see you, Andrew.
Bye, Andrew. All right, JJ. So when you explained it to me, I came in as a complete idiot. All of you guys obviously know a little bit about this stuff, whereas I'm still a complete idiot for the most part. So I'm going to say it in complete idiot speak the way it made sense to me. So JJ's saying that you've got this SDR, it's a device, you plug in the power and then you hook it up USB, right, to your computer. And then what it does is it allows you to capture a huge chunk of spectrum at a single time. So you can pick up multiple conversations at once, and kind of like your DVR on your TV, it's going to record all those. Well, you can go back and decode all these messages. So what it does is it takes the high frequency signal, and then it modulates it down into audio and kind of feeds it software wise into your sound cards. Your sound card thinks it's like actually sound, but it's not. It's these radio waves.
Correct.
Right?
You're converting it down to baseband.
Awesome. And so then what you could do is you can record all these conversations, multiple conversations at a time. You can go back and selectively pick conversations, decode them, and listen to them. So with these low frequency bands, it's conversations that can traverse the globe, and so you can tap into people talking all over the world, which is just crazy to me.
With no infrastructure.
Right.
That's why it's so appealing to me, is because I spend my entire life building infrastructure, and I see how easy it would be to destroy a lot of it in one go, and how fragile it all really is. So it, to me, I've done a lot of work with VHF and UHF and microwave, and I'd never really messed with HF at all. It was just that thing that the old guys played with. So I now I'm getting really interested in it, and especially now that there's digital voice modes, and there's always been, RTTY and PSK31 and different digital modes where you could do keyboard to keyboard, or there was this other mode called slow scan television where you could send like
I was going to ask you if you ever played with slow scan. So
yeah, you can send pictures back and forth using I think it's a FSK modulation. So there's different modes, but the one that really appeals to me right now is the digital mode, because we've had commercial codecs for some time, where we could like a codec that a lot of radio people will know. It's called AMBE or AMBE plus or AMBE2 plus. A lot of the digital D-Star. The D-Star uses AMBE. So up until D-Star came along, everything amateur radio people had ever done was open, was what we understand as open source. The amateur guys are doing open source before, us whippersnappers came up with open source. So, it was just, free community kind of ideas and technology and things like that. So D-Star came along. It's using this AMBE plus codec, and that codec is it's proprietary, commercial property. So in order to use it, you have to pay licensing fees and have special, silicon that does it. There's no way to do it in software. So the guy, the Australian that came up with it, with Codec 2, he said, this is a bunch of nonsense. We need a way as amateurs to control our own codec. So he designed this speech codec and gave it to the world. I mean, he could have made $1 billion off of it, but he was just like, here you go. And that's kind of where it is right now. It's not been around long. I think he released it in 2011, and just like with everything, it takes a while for it to get adopted. FreeDV, you can look at the change logs. It's not been around that long. To me, it's very exciting because you can take the same amount of spectrum and now shove a ton more, voice conversations into it. which I think is really, really cool. So
You talk about the IMBE codec, and of course IMBE, or excuse me, you actually said AMBE. The commercial version, which most P25 systems are based off of, is IMBE, and both of those codecs are owned by DVSI, and of course that's the company you basically have to pay rights to be able to use that technology. And that always kind of bothered me when the D-Star stuff came out. ICOM was always flaunting it. It's an open protocol ham radio. Well, it's not really open. I mean, it's
Right.
You pay to use it whether you know it or not. So that always kind of bothered me.
And you don't get to do it in software. You can't take an ARM CPU and do it with open source software. With Codec 2, you can just throw it on a Raspberry Pi or any ARM CPU. You can take it, if you scroll to the bottom of the FreeDV codec page or the FreeDV page, to put it in your own product. I think they want $10 for an SDK. That's all they're asking for. So
wait a minute, SDK? I don't think Ubiquity knows what that is anymore, do they?
Oh, shots fired, people. Shots fired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, snap. Let's pretend like that didn't happen.
Oh man, okay, you might want to edit that out later.
Yeah.
We need some sound effects for things
There's
like that.
probably
like Bazinga.
There's a drone flying towards your house right now, Ryan.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Robert's there going.
I forget that's your employer. Maybe I should say anything like that.
All in good fun, sir.
So, hey, I've got something that I want to get your all's opinion on. And, of course, this is going to be another complete 180 from our ham radio subjects here. What is the new and scary thing that Ubiquity's talking about releasing here at Wispalooza? Yeah.
I have no idea.
I mean, I just want everybody's opinion. I mean, do we think it's something based on air fiber modem technology in a different band? Do we think it's something we're not expecting at all?
That we're not going to see for 2 years?
Well, that's pretty standard, I think, but yeah.
Fair being fair, that comes from both sides of the camp.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to give them any grief about the amount of time that it takes them to get something out, because then they'll just zip their lips and you won't hear anything. So
I don't know. You got to think though, like I mean, the Motorola guys they bought to do the air fiber stuff. It took them a little while to put a product together, but from all indications from everybody I've talked to, it is like so rock solid.
Oh, the air fibers are solid. Yeah.
So maybe they loan those guys out over to the Air Max team.
I definitely think we're going to see them, Air Max 2 or, this is speculation. I have no idea. This is just me. It's mostly me dreaming and knowing what I would try to be working on if I were in their position. I would be trying to port that modem that they've designed for the air fiber down to lower frequencies and enhancing it, since it is a firmware defined radio.
Right. It's not software defined.
Right.
Firmware defined.
Right. So since it's a firmware defined radio, all you have to do is change, the electronics on the front of it and the back of it, and and package it down. They used FPGAs. Maybe they could, use some affordable silicon instead of an FPGA. I mean, FPGAs in quantity is still affordable, but maybe they could, or maybe they're working on their own silicon. I've kind of wished that from the beginning, which is a huge undertaking. But they definitely are acquiring the market share and the prowess and the engineers to accomplish such a task. So now that they have their own modem design, I really see them, changing what we understand. Like OFDM would just basically be a software upgrade, when we see them with their own modem design. And I really want to see that happen. And I think we will in this next generation hardware, them using their own. They're not going to be buying some, 802 chip off the shelf and throwing it in their hardware. They're going to be, doing their own thing.
I'd like to see some more complex, rate coding, going on. Something, 256, 512, QAM, something a little higher up. So
Well, if you look at it on the air fiber, I think they're at 64 QAM right now, and if you look at the way that they're doing their coding and the amount of bandwidth that they're modulating, and the frequency that they're working at, there's not a lot to be gained up in that frequency. But again, they can do it. It's just a software upgrade.
Right.
Since they have designed their own modem, and it's kind of, it's a firmware, our software design modem, and a lot of, our software defined radio is, for us, was a learning experience. How does this this magic work? So it's been.
I know.
Yeah, my money's on a firmware product, but probably not in a, I'm guessing they're going to go after a band that's attractive, like 365. Maybe 365, maybe make it WiMAX compliant, something like that, something that is a higher end product.
And I was thinking something that might be easy for them is they already put out the Unify 802.11ac. Why not port that from the Unify side over to the AirMax side?
Right.
Try and do something with that. I mean, they've already cut their teeth with it. They've already gotten wet. Might as well, go all the way in.
I mean, if they're going head to head with Cambium, Cambium's push is, WiMAX, 802.16 compatible, everything we're putting out, yeah, we want you to buy our stuff, but it is, 802.16. So, if they're wanting to go, head to head with them, then, something that's disruptive for that market.
Yeah, because that would be a completely different market they'd be jumping into. Because, I mean, that's really big providers. The only guys that I've seen that are just really sprawling big providers. I haven't seen any small guys jump in.
Several of my clients are buying, Cambium 450 APs, and they're selling 10 megs to the client, and they're making the investment to do that because they can get more revenue per customer. You spend $3,000 on an access point, but if you're selling, $100, $200, $300 services per sub, it pays for itself pretty well. And that's the attractive thing. Hey, if I can put up an AP and I can get 90 megs of aggregate throughput out of that AP, I can sell a lot on that AP.
90 megs of aggregate, but with how many clients connected? How many concurrent clients?
I don't really know. I know the biggest one I've seen at 10 meg service levels, he's got 30 some clients on it. Of course it's oversold and all that good stuff, but I think he's charging $99 for 10 megs. So you got 30 clients times, times $100.
$3,000 a month.
Yeah, the AP's paid for itself in a month.
That returns pretty fast.
Yeah.
Also, another thing that I would like to see out of that camp is, and this is more than just Ubiquity. This is all of the manufacturers and all of the WISPA people and just everybody as a whole, is as a ham radio person that's done a lot of microwave stuff with ham radio, the hams do not use the 3 gigahertz band that we have, and there's I'm just talking off the top of my head. I don't know the exact number, but there's like 200 or 300 megahertz of spectrum there that hams are. I think a lot of it's primary, some of it's secondary. But if they could get that opened up for part 15, and still give the hams primary on it, I think that's the band that they should be pursuing. Because it would kind of be thrown out there, and we would get the like first dibs on it. I mean, it's very clean spectrum. I think that's what they should be pursuing as an industry, the 3 gigahertz stuff for fixed access, and you could probably even do some mobile access with it, in limited places. But I think lobbying for favorable treatment, as far as spectrum goes, instead of in our country, Congress just auctioning off all this spectrum to the huge carriers. give the smaller guys a bone, because if you open it up for Part 15, and when they opened up 2.4 gig, look what happened. We got microwave ovens, we got, all these crazy things that work on 2.4 gig, routers and all this stuff that we play with every day in our professional lives, and Bluetooth. Just, you could sit here all night and list this stuff off and not.
But it's not stuff that's just a convenience. It's become a necessity. Like it's absolutely
exactly.
necessary. Like every home in America has a microwave now. At least 90% of internet users, if not more, have wireless routers. It's not that's not something I would like to have. It's like it's life, liberty, pursuit of the happiness, and then Wi-Fi. I think it's the fourth one.
So home is
how
where
many,
the Wi-Fi automatically connects.
That's right.
As I say, how many users fire up their microwave oven and lose their Wi-Fi connectivity?
Just get off channel 1 and you won't have that problem.
Well, and JJ makes a good point. Hey, if you have a firmware-defined radio, you can go to the governing body and say, hey, give us this spectrum. Tomorrow you'll have product for it.
Exactly.
We have it built.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Like if you've got your bandpass filters and things on the front end of the radio that are tuned into those spectrums, then it would be no problem. It would just be a software upgrade. And if they make hardware and they're not putting those bandpass filters in, I can't imagine exactly why, unless it was just cost prohibitive. So
Yeah, it'd be performance prohibitive at some point.
yeah, if you have too many of them,
Yeah.
with all the muxing and everything you can do, and all these, all this silicon, and they've got the FPGAs. I mean, we're tinkering with FPGA on, or the idea of using FPGA on another software-defined radio. We've got all these ideas. It's just a matter of having one pay for the next one, or just trying to find one that makes enough money to pay for a whole bunch of them. It's kind of the conundrum that Ubiquiti was in the beginning. They started making the Wi-Fi cards. Now it's a non-issue, but developing all these little products, it's like, okay, how do you mass produce this? Where's your market? Who's buying it? So, it's easy to beat up on them, but I have a lot of respect for what they do and how they've done it. So,
I figure you'd develop your own FPGA to do Bitcoin mining in the back room, and that way you generate money.
That's what his zombie Trojan network does now. It just mines Bitcoin. He doesn't attack people anymore.
Yeah, that's old school.
Yeah.
So the amateur spectrum is 3.3 gig through 3.5, a full 200 meg.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew I was close. So.
Yeah.
Because we use quite a bit of it to do repeater linking with Ubiquiti M3 hardware. So we're doing D-Star repeater linking with and getting back into the reflectors using Ubiquiti M3 hardware. And we're, the buzzword or the coin term for it is Hinternet, the ham internet.
Internet, interesting. Yeah.
So we've been using a lot of the Ubiquiti 3 gigahertz hardware for that. Not the 365, but the actual M3 stuff. And we've been, putting the SSID as our call signs, and of course, no encryption. You can't run encryption.
Oh no, that's voodoo magic in amateur radio there. So.
Well, the only time you run encryption, I'm studying for another test right now, is to control a space station. I was like, I want to control a space station.
That doesn't sound like a good idea.
So if we put a balloon in your backyard, is that a space station at that point? Can we do that?
I'm up for it.
Let's go for it.
So JJ, what's your call sign?
It's Kilo Golf 4 Victor Charlie Foxtrot, so KG4 VCF.
Okay. Do you do any IRLP stuff over there, or are you just all D-Star?
Yeah, we've done some RLP in the past, some Echolink. I've got a couple of repeaters. A lot of the mountains and towers I'm on, I'm so grateful to the amateur radio community where I'm at, because we probably half of the towers that we're on those towers because we do something for the amateur radio community to get that space.
Yeah.
And I'm huge into the amateur radio community, or parts of it, and there's a lot of it I don't want much to do with. But but as far as the key repeaters in our area, the ones that are on some very prestigious mountains, we are there because I help the amateur radio community. I provide them with data services. We do repeater linking for them because, this microwave stuff for a lot of these, these analog, repeater guys, it's voodoo.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely. So we do a lot of stuff here. I up until just last week, I was the repeater frequency coordinator for the state,
awesome.
and I'm the assistant now, which is better because I don't have time to be the full-time coordinator. So, but yeah, so I do a lot of stuff with IRLP. I really enjoy it. The Central Region Reflector sits on one of my VMware machines down on our HE gigabit fiber connection in downtown Kansas City.
That's awesome.
So
Cool.
yeah, so that's good stuff.
I've done some some ROLP. I never really got into it because I'm trying to remember the exact reason. It had something to do with the software, and I kind of went down the Echolink path. I like the decentralization the Echolink offered. Um, I don't know. It was just, I guess, a personal choice. RLP. It, Now this was 5, 8, 9 years ago too, when this stuff was just starting to get going, and I had an Echolink node in my closet for 3 or 4 years, just running on simplex, and then I put it over in a repeater, and I was invited to put it over on the repeater, and then. We've got a repeater on Mount Mitchell. The claim to fame on that guy is it's the highest repeater east of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so you can talk parts of 6 states off that guy.
That's crazy. Greg was telling me you had skeletons in your closet, not Echolink nodes, so I had no idea.
JJ is the oldest young man you'll ever meet.
What?
I swear, and I tell everybody this, he's forgotten more than I'll ever learn about
That is not true at
most
all.
things.
Yeah, I'll say this much. It takes a really good combination of someone to run a WISP that has decent, IP routing knowledge and a fair share of RF knowledge. If you don't have both, it's really challenging for those folks. I mean, trust me, I see it every day. It's it's like watching a mouse try to get out of a maze sometimes.
You know what? It's funny that you say that. The very first time I met JJ, he didn't know hardly anything about routing, and he taught himself from the ground up how to route in probably about 3 months. And it was I've never seen the likes of it. JJ's the kind of guy that will lock himself in a room with a box of Twinkies and a jug of water, and he'll come out 3 days later and he'll know what he's doing.
Nice compliments. Thank you very much. It's very humbling.
Mm-hmm. See, 3 words. Before, when he was talking about the SDR, about 30 minutes solid. You give him a compliment, he zips right up.
Yeah. I was searching for the mute button here, but anyway.
You get me rambling, and then, everybody that knows me, it's like, what is he talking about? Okay, we're gonna have to record this and then splice the pieces back together. And I know that I do it. I just can't help it. I don't know.
Normally it's fine, but when we're talking about advanced topics, people have trouble just hanging on to a single thread. You can't jump around. You're confusing the hell out of people.
Yeah, you can always tell when somebody enjoys what they're talking about because they talk. That's yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, man, I didn't know you guys had so much ham in common. You guys are ham BFFs. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What's your call?
Kilo 0 Bravo Sierra Juliet. It's my initials K0BSJ.
Oh, so you have one of those vanity call signs?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to see, my license expired once upon a time, and I got it back, and I only did tech because everything I do up until now has been above above 50 meg. Most of it microwave. Some high power microwave. We've done quite a few different things. EME, meteor scatter. A lot of high power microwave playing around. So now HF has become really interesting to me. So I've spent the last 3 or 4 days, hitting the books on the general exam. So we have a Hamfest coming up called the Shelby Hamfest. It's at the end of the month, so I was gonna go sit for that exam at the end of the month. So, and then probably another month or 3, I'm gonna go ahead and do my extra and get me one of those fancy pants 1x2 calls.
Ooh, going
Yeah.
full tilt there, yeah.
Yeah, full tilt. So,
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've just always been, what they call a no-code tech, for years, and I just never had the ambition to do anything HF related. I mean, I'm too busy doing other things. So I'm sure it'll hit me one of these days. I'll get bit by the HF bug, and next thing you know, I'll be upgrading my license. So.
Well, that's the thing about HF. Most of the people there, you up until recently, up until all these software-defined this, it's, and that's it's, in order to do the cool stuff, you had to have, $4,000 for radio and $3,000 or $4,000 for an antenna and tuner and amplifier array, and it is kind of the old retirees that could afford it. Were the ones that are there, and you still get a lot of that. You get a lot of, I don't mean to pick on them, and I mean I respect all of them, but there's a lot of elitism that goes on.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Oh, you're a no-code tech. Well, yeah. Well, what do you know about coding theory? And you can send CW. Well, I can send 10,000 words a minute. So what do you think about that? So no, I don't mean to be facetious like that, but there's a lot of elitism, and rightfully so. They kind of cut their teeth on all this stuff, and
some of them will never use any radio over IP interface in their life to ever communicate with. They just, that's cheating. Why can't you use HF for that?
Right.
I guess that's a bit like somebody saying they're going to use a rotary phone for the rest of their life. Huh?
Yep.
It's like I refuse to use a cell phone. I don't need that.
Right. And you'll find I've met some of the most brilliant people through amateur radio and since we decided to become a WISP, and those two like if I'm writing down the timeline of my life, those two are junctures where I met the most brilliant people that I've ever met was becoming a WISP and becoming an amateur radio operator. Those two offshoots have pretty much defined my life up until now. So
yeah, I wouldn't have got into doing, communications engineering work if it weren't for, my love for radio and getting into amateur radio stuff. So,
yeah, it's been a ton of fun, and I get to, like I go into these, these television stations where we have co-located equipment, and I'm standing there talking to the station engineer, and he's just melting my brain. Like it's just like. And and I start talking about what I do, and I'm melting his brain. He called me the other day, talking to me about virtual machines and just different things, and so I think these radio engineering tops and broadband engineering tops, just they're all cut out of the same piece of fabric. They have this uncanny thirst for knowledge.
Oh, yeah, most of your engineers and things like that, they're the only ones, doing it. We like to think that, everybody should be doing the WISP thing and stuff, but we're really, we're a minority. And, television engineers are the same thing. Radio engineers are the same thing, especially nowadays with all the consolidation. You got guys out there that are still doing, they're doing stuff 95% of the population is not doing. So when they, when you find somebody that, is in the same ballpark, that's a big deal.
Right.
Like what RF is? Wow.
Yeah. Like the first time I ever took a bullet, this was like, I don't know, 2009, I guess. I took that bullet in front of the station engineer. I said, check this thing out. And I showed it to him, and he said, oh, this guy's Cuban, so he's hilarious. He's like, oh, the Ethernet goes in this end, and oh my God, the RF comes out the other.
Oh, man.
And then And I was like, yeah, and I was like, and this is, I think that particular one is like 28 dBm, and I told him 28 dBm, and he ran around in circles, just like, it's like telling, Doc Brown that the lightning was going to strike the clock tower, and I mean, he freaked out because he dragged me downstairs and he pointed at some huge rack mount thing that was putting out 50 dBm. They were running into a 12-foot dish with waveguide, and he sat down and did the link budget, and he's like, this right here on that 1 meter antenna that you're about to use has more ERP than that system right there. And so he was just amazed. It just, him being an old school microwave guy, it melted his mind.
That's funny.
So
I was talking. I know it's not comparable, but I was talking to a guy who he's the head of this incubator they're building out of the University of Memphis here. I ate lunch with him. He's a really, really interesting guy, and they're doing a lot of research projects. Anyway, they're getting ready to do the wireless out there. And he was like, yeah, we usually use Cisco, and I was like, you know what? It's funny you say that, because I know of this company called Ubiquity, and I was like, those radios that you're going to buy, they're going to be a few grand a piece. I was like, yeah, the most expensive one that you could possibly purchase from Ubiquity would be like $200. And he just blew his mind. He was just like, how is that possible? Of course, he didn't really know what RF and all that stuff was. He just knew that it cost dollars and that it did things.
it does things that people enjoy.
Yeah.
Hey, so I've got a question, and I'll switch gears for everybody again, only because it's my question, right? I noticed the other day that the Mikrotik 250GS switch is no longer in production.
That's not a surprise.
So everything's going to the 260 now, which is the switch that has the fiber SFP port in it.
Yeah, I've used a couple of those.
So my question is, can I see statistics on that SFP port?
Yes.
Okay,
Sort
so
of.
it's sort of.
Yeah, you don't get the full, the full Monty in the firmware that is on the one that I've used. But you see, I'm trying to remember what you see. I could see the bias transmit power and the receive level. There was something that was missing that I was a little let down about, and I can't remember, that you can see in like the Cloud Core SFPs and different things I've missed.
Can you see like all the Ethernet statistics, like, transmit, receive error, stuff along those
Yes.
lines? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the most important part to me. I could really care less about the laser light levels and stuff. So
I wanted to make sure that my fusion splicing was doing what it was supposed to do.
yeah.
I don't have an OTDR yet, so.
Oh man, at the data center, our OTDR was, I had a media converter that would take multi-mode to single mode. It would like convert the medias, and so I took a 9-volt battery and a pack of AA batteries and wired them in series, and that would power it up, and then we'd plug it in the device, and if it came up, then the link was good. That's all. We'd plug it into the switch through the fiber, because it would like media convert it, and if the lights came on, you knew it worked. That's how we did it.
That's your OTDR.
That's our OTDR, yeah.
That's great.
And it worked. It worked every time. Because our distances weren't that far. I'm sure you're doing a lot of outdoor stuff. Our distances were max at like 300 feet, 350 feet.
Gotcha. Yeah, this was an outdoor thing, but it still wasn't that far. So, but yeah, that's on the list of things to acquire is an OTDR. So
You gonna get that off Craigslist?
Wherever, whichever one comes into my possession, affordable.
Brian, I'm curious, what are you using the 260s for?
What am I using the 260s
Yeah.
for? Actually, they're going to be a media converter.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah, that's the cheapest media converter I can think of, right? And I can choose what SFP I stick in it. So
What are those?
Yeah.
What are you guys picking those 260s up for, like price wise?
$37, $38.
I was gonna say $40.
That's cheaper than you can buy a media converter off the shelf.
Yeah, and then you
Heck
can
yeah.
get those SFPs. We went with the technical term is eluding me, but the multiplex ones where you can do a single fiber. What are they? What's the word for that?
Yeah, the Rennish talking about them.
The bidirectional. There we go.
Yeah.
or the BIDIs as they are all listed on pricing sheets. Um, uh, we use those, and I had good luck with the Mikrotik ones. That is actually running that that Radmux right now between a courthouse and a
Yeah.
and a, and a 911 center. So
Yeah, and those Mikrotik SFPs are only like what, $22 or something like that, $24.
yeah, that you should have seen the quote that they had before I said, yeah, I can do that. I'll not throw the people under the bus that quoted it, but uh, it was amazing. It's like I could do that for like lunch money.
Yeah.
So,
I was speaking of SFPs and Mikrotik. I can't remember where I heard it digging around, but I want to say I think that they're gonna do an SFP plus, like they're gonna build their own.
that would be awesome.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty cool.
it would be
I
pretty
think
interesting.
that their SFPs are FinCon or something like that. They're rebranded FinCons or something like that. Some Chinese SFP.
No, they're stupid
'Cause
cheap.
Yeah, because I got some of those. I think it's FinCon. I got some of those in, and the Baltic Networks one, or excuse me, MaxWave ones,
Yeah.
and the Mikrotik ones, and the FinCon. I think it's FinCon. I'll have to look it up, but they're all the same. It's the same doodad. And I figured that out one day because I was, we were ordering some parts off DigiKey, and it popped up and said, "Oh, I guess they were reading my email or something." And said, "Oh, you need SFPs?" And I said, "Yeah, I do actually."
Yeah, that's the glorious Google Gmail completely taking over your life there.
Yeah.
That's good. If it could just make me a sandwich, I'd be all right with it. So let's switch gears again completely. While I'm thinking about it, I am trying to do an indoor navigation thing, and I've seen a couple of different methods to do it, like through an app. It's like I'm having an app custom built, and so the first thing I thought of was doing the wireless fingerprinting. So what you do is you basically, and I even came up with a quick algorithm that would probably suffice. I found some companies that do it, and they'll sell it to you off the shelf for like 25 grand a year. They license it to you, or another one will do about 15 grand a year. But it's stupid simple. All you need is your map, XY coordinate, and then you just look at like the top 4 or 5 access point signals. Look at their signal strength, right? And that's the fingerprint. My device might get a different signal strength, but the proportions are still going to be the same on those access points, So that's the fingerprint.
Are you saying you can't find your way around the stadium? Is that what you're saying?
No, the idea is going to build an app that, for one, will find you where you are, and then for two, will show you kind of the amenities that are closest to you. You can click on one; it'll navigate you there. Just cute little stuff like that. Give you turn by
giving you a
turn.
hard time.
I know you. See, I'm not going to lower myself to your level. But I found out that works great in Android, but since iOS, Apple has locked you out of looking at signal levels via an app. You can't do it anymore. The only way you can do that.
Oh, so it's like that commercial when she says, "I can't do that."
Exactly, she can't do that, and they have no plans from any of the research I can see, and even talking to some of those vendors that do these specific sorts of things, they're like, "Yeah, we can't do that anymore with Apple," and we've been told that it's never going to be available again. So that pretty much precluded that. So I was thinking, well, maybe I can get GPS signals inside. So I started looking for GPS repeaters, and I found some that people use like in parking garages. So you put an antenna up on the roof, run it down to basically the repeater, which is just a signal booster, and then shoot it out of an antenna, and they'll do 20 or 30. And then I got to thinking, why would I want to pay so much money for that, do penetrations through the roof, do all that cabling crap? Because it's kind of, if you think about a giant arena, it's going to be a pain in the butt to go through all those levels. I was like, why can't I just have a small device that I just tell it what its coordinates are, its longitude and latitude, and then it just radiates that out and says, hey, you're here, sort of something like that. I guess you would have, but it doesn't really work like that. You have to basically send a satellite signal, from multiple places, and you will triangulate your position based on how long it takes a satellite.
And I'm also curious how you're going to find FCC certified gear that transmits on those frequencies.
Because I know
I think you should completely take advantage of this situation, and every time someone walks into the arena, they're in Honolulu.
I don't care where they are as long as they find themselves on the little map. That's all that matters. But
Well, I mean, have you looked at, a lot of the farmers use GPS technology and they have repeaters.
But they're outside.
yeah,
right?
they're outside, so they're pretty bueno. For me, I found out that you've got an L1 signal and an L2 signal. L1 is like civilian use, so it's completely unencrypted. L2 is the military use, which is encrypted. So I would just try and spit out, and it spits out on a specific frequency. It's like 1500.24, something like that.
It's a good reason to buy a hack RF.
I don't know, but if you could do that, because it seems like you'd have to have a way to synchronize them all, because I mean they have to be synchronized off the same time source from what I understand, because it uses all that and it's triangulation somehow. But I've seen, I mean, they make test equipment to test your GPS stuff, but these things are like $3,500 for a single unit. That's just dumb. Because yeah, like the hack RF is $200 and it'll transmit in that frequency. I would just have to do some kung fu on the software side to actually generate that signal and spit it out.
I'm thinking you just hire a contractor and put in a GPS repeater system.
I don't want to do that. I want to do it the cool way.
I've done some work on some military Air Force base stuff, and when they keep certain planes in hangars that are at the ready all the time, they repeat GPS into the hangar, so the plane always knows where it's at.
The repeater services show, like, one of their examples is putting it inside of airport hangars, putting it inside of fire stations for the fire truck navigation. And
just hand them a paper map when they walk through the door. Come on.
I'll just do stripes. I'll just do like colored stripes on the floor with arrows. That'd be great.
Every 10 feet they walk by one of those little display things that says "You are here."
Yeah. No, obviously this isn't a necessity. It's just something I've been kind of chasing. The idea.
I mean, it'd be cool if you could. You're sitting there and I want a Coke. Okay, where do I go?
No, what would be even better? It's like I ordered a Coke and then you see it come there, just like when you order a pizza. It's like the guy is on the way and he's like in section G4 and he's on the way. There you go.
You can watch your pizza come to you. Is what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sitting there like, and the guy's like right there. Oh, you're here. Okay, thanks.
Nobody would be watching the game, which I guess is counterproductive.
Well, half of them probably watch the game on their phones anyway.
Ugh. See, and I don't. That kind of sours me on the idea of having all this stuff available. But I can't imagine, because saying it is one thing, but when you're actually there, it's like so loud and it's such an experience. I can't imagine anybody just staring at the phone. Maybe occasionally glancing at your phone, catch a replay, something like that. But I don't think people are just gonna be staring at them. That would be crazy.
No.
That would be crazy.
No, it's only in the bathroom.
I say that, but like the guy up in the top of the terrace section, I bet he stares at the Jumbotron the whole game and just watches it from there. But I don't know. So the GPS repeater thing would probably work, but it sounds like it would be cost prohibitive.
So I guess the goal is to be able to triangulate the position of the people so that they would know where they're at in the building?
Right, so that the map can show them where they're at, kind of thing.
Bathrooms are...
Yeah, like
stuff like
you're
that.
here,
Yeah.
this thing you're looking for is right behind you.
Gotcha.
But it's not a necessity, it would just be nice.
And all the walking directions take you right by the concession stands, no matter what.
Yeah, you got to go through the casino if you want to get out.
Right?
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. That's how I would do it.
You could dumb it down a little bit and write an app to install on their smartphone and locate them based on what AP they're talking.
Well, see, I mean, I could.
Uh-oh, he's thinking.
Well, I mean,
now.
I've thought of that. You could try and track back. Since we're doing everything with Unify, the statistics don't update that fast, but you could speed up the process a little bit, and it would give them kind of a ballpark. But I don't know. It would be kind of.
That's only if you're in good with the manufacturer.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
well, if you think about it, the Unify backend is pretty wide open. It's and the database where all the information stored is open. So you can look at that with anything.
Is there an SDK for that?
You just get in there.
I think they're
SDR.
actually, if you look on Google Code, I think there actually is some code where they had some stuff opened up and some people wrote some interfaces for it.
Yeah, I plugged around in the database a little bit. It looked like it's just MongoDB,
It is.
and I played around in there and did some injections and.
It's funky. Why can't I just use this name? A darn SQL statement. I just want to use a SQL query, and it doesn't work, and I hate it.
No.
And I hate it, and I hate it, and I hate it. Did I mention that I hate it?
It's because that you're getting to that age now where your peers did not program it.
Well, just think about it. I could access any information with a single query. I can make it compound. I can make it complex. But this MongoDB, it doesn't make
Mango.
MongoDB. It seems so irrational. I need it to be logical. It needs to make sense.
You have to have Andrew say mango for you.
Ugh.
14% on the battery. Talked it dead. Man, power saver.
So what is this no video tonight, JJ?
Oh, this laptop I'm on, for some reason the driver's not working on this chintzy. It's a long story. With developing this software-defined stuff, this laptop, I'm surprised the sound still works in it. So
He's broke it.
Sam set his laptop on fire a few weeks ago.
But that was on a bet, right?
No, it was what did he do? He put 110 volts into the USB port by accident.
Ouch. Yeah, that would do
That'll
it.
do
it.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you do that on accident?
It's
Well,
Sam.
see, we were building this apparatus to switch something on and off with an Arduino. Well, when it switched on, he didn't have his grounds isolated, and he switched 110 volts into his ground. So
The Arduino was
Oops.
fine, so that's good. But
no, it wasn't.
Oh.
Well, but we just called Dell, and they sent a guy out, and we said, "I don't know what happened. They just quit working after we plugged this into the USB port and hit this button."
Good
Oh
times.
man.
Well, we wrote a halt and catch fire instruction.
Emergency panic sequence.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah. But no, I must admit, working with Sam is a blast. It's like working with Doc Brown every day. You know, it's
Are you guys going to the mom, JJ?
we're thinking about, I don't know, Kim, she's wanting to go to down to Florida and take a real vacation instead of me dragging her to some nerd convention.
Uh-huh.
So next month we're going down there. So if I can, figure out a way to swing another adventure rapidly, I want to go. When is it? I've not even looked at it. It's in October?
19th and 20th, isn't it?
September
19th. Yep.
Yeah.
I'd said something to Greg about maybe me going since it's just 4 hours away, but my anniversary's that week, and I'm going to be hosed.
Yeah, I'm
not
going to
gonna
be in
work.
Florida that weekend, like that whole week. I don't know exactly what the dates are. I'll dig them up, but Kim really wants to do a proper vacation this year. We've not done one in a while, so
You gotta take care of the house first.
indeed. I really want to go. I'm going to miss out on seeing the Latvians for an entire year.
Yeah. I just want to go and have drinks with Giannis. I mean, that's really, my only reason for going.
It's such a highlight.
I think I saw Tom Smith say something about making it to the States. I don't know if he's going to be there or not, but it almost sounds like it might be worth it just to go see Tom.
Yeah, just to see Tom.
Or I guess see Tom get drunk, I guess, is really what I was getting at.
Have a few pints with the laddies.
I just looked at, I told them I wanted to do a presentation, and I just
7%.
looked at what they have listed for mine, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have no clue why I even told them that.
They're trying to fill the docket.
Just turn it into a QA session.
I guess. I don't know.
There you go.
Okay, so We're going to talk about Mikrotik bugs and go.
That would be the entire mom, right?
Oh.
I think I get tased after that. I could see Giannis coming up. I'm sorry, don't kill me.
Yeah, you're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get so much
Me?
trouble.
I'm not going to be there. What can they do?
Oh, they have people. They know people.
So I know you guys in the past have talked about the new cloud core routers. Any major issues out there with any of the new version 6 stuff in the cloud
I'm
core
going to go ahead
routers?
and tell you guys that I'm out, and I'm going to stay here until my laptop dies, though. So.
All right,
Okay.
Tracy. I'd heard about some funkiness in 6.1 about they supposedly fixed a bunch of IPsec problems from 6.1 to 6.2, and I think some routing stuff, some BGP stuff I think got cleared up, but I specifically remember IPsec. And then I read something about some guys that went to 6.2 and were still having a little bit of IPsec problems, so looks like they're still kind of working on some of that. But
And I think that's been kind of historically, they ran into the same thing with 4, and they ran into the same thing with 5, the encryption stuff. Anything encryption related has always been, a little bit of an issue, when the new versions come out.
yeah.
They got to wait on the coders at like UC Berkeley to finish it before they can put it in their product.
Well, I think the IPsec, I think they did a lot of that themselves, and they use Raccoon or something like that. And then I know, who is it? Andrew Thrift is always harping on them about their IPsec implementation and how bad it is. I think he sees red every time he talks about it. So it's been a sore subject for ages and ages. And I know my luck with IPsec and the Mikrotik has been kind of here and there sometimes, but usually it works pretty well.
I was tasked with trying to get it to work with a Juniper router, and I spent like 4 days on that, and I finally came up with a solution that sort of worked. And I said, that's as good as it gets. We'll see you later.
I was just looking at the 6.2 changelog. It's huge.
Oh, it's enormous.
Yeah, the last couple change logs have been, fairly informative.
Yeah.
So
Although
I've been kind of proud of them.
It's interesting though. If you have access to the early versions of the code, you'll see interim change logs, and not everything from those interim revisions actually make it to the final change log. So
Yeah.
I don't know, some of that stuff just kind of falls off, but they seem to really be on the ball this time around.
As someone that's been doing quite a bit of software development in the last year or so, I can tell you when we write our change logs, there's not a tenth of the stuff that we did that makes it into the log. It's like whatever we remembered we did.
Right? You don't want to make a list of all your failures. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 2 cloud cores running on the edge, and they're OSPF together, so I can reboot one, and the other one just comes into play. So I have one running. I have one running 6.0, and I have running 6.1. The 6.1 one is ready to be rebooted to 6.2. BGP, OSPF, some firewall rules, some queues. I don't have a problem with it.
I've just been doing little stuff on 6.2, and it seems okay.
I was just reading this one entry in the changelog for 6.2. It says, improve CCR responsiveness on other interfaces when one interface is under attack. That's an interesting changelog.
What kind of attack?
Yeah.
A fork.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Let's normally right here at the end I kind of figure out what you guys have been doing. I'm looking at everybody's blog and nobody's updated anything. I think I'm the only one.
I haven't been doing. I've been dead.
I put one thing out. That's all I had time for.
I've been wanting to do stuff, but between kidney stones and old man problems, I've.
Jeez, you're falling apart, man.
I know. I've done hardly anything in the past month except work out and stuff. I've been not in front of the computer actually very much.
How's that feel?
It's kind of liberating. It really is. It's a little liberating, and it's it's new territory. I've been doing ISP stuff since 1993, and it's been one thing after another, and I think this is the longest I've kind of taken a hiatus.
I don't.
You gotta get out and get the sunlight. You'll be like Andrew, start breaking
I know,
bones.
get
Right?
all that vitamin D.
Exactly.
I don't know, man. Like lately, I've just been so stressed. Like getting RFP for the
Hey,
install.
you got this.
I know, dude. It's like the RFPs. I've got those out for the cablers, and so I'm gonna get them actually cabling everything up and installing antennas pretty soon, which means it's almost the point of no return. So we'll see what happens. So it's getting kind of hairy, but I think the only thing I put up.
Have you closed on your house yet?
No, we haven't finished selling it yet. So yeah, I'm still trying to sell our old house. So we're kind of paying like almost like 2 mortgages right now. So we're living kind of lean. Although I had a vendor lunch today, which was really nice. And I get a vendor lunch tomorrow, which will be nice because I'm getting really tired of sandwiches. So that'll be nice. But let's see. One of the things I did was a Call Manager Express thing. I didn't talk about that last time, did I? I don't think I did that. Yeah. I basically, one of our schools, they need a temporary phone system for a little while. Get off their old PBX, and so I used my Lab 2621. It's like worth $200, and I used an MC3810. It's an ancient Cisco router that's got 6 analog ports, and I got that off of eBay for about $23 shipped to me. So it gave me 6 FXS ports for like faxes and stuff like that, and then we loaned them a bunch of phones. And so I did a post on how to configure all that good stuff up. So it's basically a phone system on the cheap, and it's got T1 interfaces. You can do your SIP trunking, you can do virtually anything in kind of a nice hardware temporary fashion. But other than that, I don't think I've actually put up anything worth noting.
So is that a temporary solution?
It is. It's only going to be in there for about 8 months or something like that before we put in something else. But I say temporary, but it could be permanent. I mean, you could run it. And I'm also using an Elastic server as their voicemail server, so it's pulling back. I guess I could have just flashed all the phones to SIP, and then when I wanted to throw them back on the old call manager, I could have flashed them back to Skinny, but that's a huge pain in the butt to do that. And like with the Elastics, you have to install TFTP, and then you have to get the images up there, then these special config files that when it boots, the Cisco phones will pull. It's a huge pain in the butt. So it's easier just
and DHCP options and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's so much easier just to actually terminate it on Call Manager Express and just set it, forget it. You never have to jack with it again.
I did a whole bunch of DHCP options on Mikrotik for my telephone system, and that was a challenge because you have to put all the DHCP options into the Mikrotik and hex. So
convert them over. I think they used to on their DHCP only allow you like one option for some reason, and then eventually they add it so you could add just multiple options. You could chain multiple options in there. I remember thinking how weird that was. So they finally
that they only had one.
Yeah. It's like, what happens if you have a couple things you need in there?
Too bad.
Hey, JJ, you still on here?
Yeah, for now.
For a few more minutes, right? I was going to mention this to you earlier, but you're familiar with Bob Heil.
Is he the guy that makes the microphones?
Yeah. He just recently moved back to Missouri. He lives down around the Ozarks now.
That's cool.
Yeah, kind of neat.
Yeah, he's he makes those $500 microphones. It's like I could never buy one of those.
Well, it makes you sound so much better, though.
Does it? Well, I work digital mode, so it doesn't matter. Neener.
Very true.
Very
goodness.
True. So, JJ, what's something new? Well, we already talked about your SDR thing. That's something new you've been working on.
Well, that's one of the new things. I mean, I haven't been on here in so long. I mean, we're building a data center.
How's the data center going? I was about to say.
It's coming along. Budgetary constraints have slowed down our construction a little bit, and I guess you could say our ADHD kicked in, and we but it's coming along. We've got an anchor customer that we're trying to romance into signing up, and when that happens, then things will move quickly. So we're ready for that one customer. So we just have to convince them to come on down. So it's coming along very nicely. Our office space is done. We got a.
No, I think JJ.
I think that means he's
finally
gone.
lost.
Yeah.
I was done listening to him anyway. So Bryon, what do you got going here lately?
I just saw a RFP come out for a county in Missouri wanting to do 6 sites worth of microwave for their fire and EMS. So I gotta respond to that. And one of my own projects, I'm running some fiber cable up a water tank, and I'm gonna isolate everything by using fiber.
Yeah, we do almost exclusively fiber and DC up towers.
Yeah, well, this has already got AC up there with outlets, so, and it's got surge arresters on it, so I'm going to utilize that, run my own 12-strand fiber, and use those 260GS switches for my fiber converters and call it good.
Yeah,
that sounds like a plan.
So, are the 260s extended temperature range?
I don't know what their temperature range is.
That's the problem we ran into when we first started doing fiber up the tower. Yeah, they'll go down to -25, so you should be all right.
Yeah.
That's the problem we ran into. They would either get real cold or real hot, and things would start getting weird.
Yeah, in the past I've used like the TP-Link, El Cheapo, fiber Ethernet converters, and I've never really had any issues with them. But I mean, just the price of those alone is, I think they're like $65, $60, $68, something like that. So I can get the Mikrotik stuff and just be able to pull stats off my fiber interface.
Yeah,
That'll be nice.
That's the big thing because we do 2 switches at the top, and a managed industrial switch was about $1,000. So when the 2011s came out, we started deploying a lot of the 2011s. Mainly because
and I thought about the 2011 too. I really did, but I think I'm going to put a tough switch up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So living on the edge.
Go to town, man. Sounds good. All right. So let's see. Any closing words so we can put a bow on this one? We've already gone 2 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're approaching the 2-hour limit.
Short
I
casts
think
always end up being forever.
Well, we haven't been together in so long. It's it's like you get together with family at Christmas, and it's like
I know when we get JJ on here, the casts are always 40% longer. But at least twice as interesting. So
I'll put in the plug for anybody that wants to go to WISP-palooza in Vegas this year. I actually got to look up when it is.
Yeah.
But if anybody if anybody's looking for a good conference to go to, the WISP-palooza is always good. October 14th through the 18th.
Yeah.
Hey, especially with that massive announcement from Ubiquiti, right?
Yep.
I think I actually get to go this year. This is gonna be the first time.
Are you gonna be able?
I'm
to
gonna
go?
try to. I need to actually start. I need to go ahead and try and arrange that this week. I think I can mooch off of Ubiquiti and get in there. I never.
Yeah, they're not gonna have a real presence there, are they? So you could be feet on the ground. They'll probably have a booth, won't they?
No, I have serious doubts about them wanting me to talk to anybody.
Come on.
I'll just be a guy there. I won't be a representative of any kind. I'm fairly certain of it.
Now,
you could collect information.
Yeah. Did I read somewhere that they're going to do? I'm saying that's going to be Ubiquiti. Are they going to do a live broadcast, webcast, whatever from there? Is that what I read?
Yeah, that's my understanding too. Is they're since they're not having the World Conference, in conjunction, I think they're going to. I think one of the days, they're going to do a like a keynote cast type thing.
So there's a place for you, Greg, right there.
No, I could just say that I can blah 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 blah, and then they'll actually be doing all the talking, and I'll just be like a puppet. That'd be perfect. I don't even know what I would talk about. I use their stuff all the time.
Unify.
It's awesome.
After all this Unify install stuff, you should be the go-to guy on any Unify questions.
I've just done a whole hell of a lot of testing so far. I haven't done any installation really yet, but that's coming up here pretty soon. So I know a whole lot more about Unify than I ever thought I would.
So you and what's his name, Jerry? Jerry's a pretty good guy with the Unify stuff.
I've talked to him a couple of times, or I've chatted with him and emailed him. Seems like a pretty smart cat. Everybody I talk to over there seems really smart. All really great guys. So it's cool. I mean, I always enjoy talking to them. They all seem really down to earth, which is weird. But it seems so odd to me that all those guys have almost like attained celebrity status, which I think being like radio engineers, they never thought that would. That doesn't even seem like a thing, but apparently it is. I don't know. I met Matt Hardy in person, and I got to run around with him a little bit. He's really pretty. Yeah, he is. He's a really nice guy.
I don't know how to take
really
that.
Nice guy.
Yeah, okay.
Matt was on
the
Wireless Without Limits cruise, and he can't be a nicer guy.
Oh yeah, he's a sweetheart. He's a really cool guy. So yeah, I mean they're all really cool, and ultimately Matt's the reason I think I'm here in Memphis anyway. So I blame him.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all.
Nah.
Got you out of that nasty Texas hole.
I guess. I mean, shoot, I could be in Missouri. So.
Yeah, misery. Yeah.
No, Texas is nice. The winter here was actually, or rather the summer was really mild. Everybody keeps telling me it's super mild, so I guess I brought the mild weather with me.
Yeah,
you're not going to get lake effect snow, or
to be honest with you, I've never.
So cold you want to set yourself on
I've
fire.
never actually like seen snow. Like we plenty of ice where I'm from, but I've never really seen snow. So this will be a first. People, somebody was telling me, they're like, yeah, that doesn't snow here. Are you kidding me? Come to find out, guys, he's from the Northeast. So, like to him, I guess what happens here is really.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, to me, that will absolutely be. He's like, there's only like a couple inches on the ground. I was like, holy crap, you serious? A couple inches? That's insane.
Yeah, we've been. I guess my kids would call it blessed here. The last couple of years, we've had some pretty good snows, deep enough that I have to get the John Deere tractor out and use the bucket, and I pile it 10 feet high.
Oh wow, dude, that's serious.
Yeah. So it's.
Do they still have to go to school?
They got quite a few days off this last year, so funny. I was kind of impressed. They're pretty sticklers about trying to get those kids in school. So
that's cool.
Yeah, cool for them, not cool for me. I don't really care to drive 2 hours in the tractor first thing in the morning. So
man, I can always remember the unabashed joy of a snow day, because you would wake up early and then all of a sudden you don't have to eat the whole world is your oyster and you don't have to go to school. I remember that. It was brilliant. It's good times.
Yeah, kids just stay home and suck down all my bandwidth.
Inevitably, that's when something goes down. You have to go take care of it. All right, let's put a bow on it. Let's wrap this up. Justin, man, always love talking to you, brother. Always love talking. I can't wait to see you. Hopefully here pretty soon.
About a month.
Andrew, it was good talking to him. That kid, JJ, always good talking to him. Hardly ever get to holler at him anymore. He's been so freaking busy. And Bryon, it was great to actually. I say meet you now because I've talked to you, and this is probably as close to in person as I'm going to talk to you for a while. So
probably so. Probably so. I enjoyed being here. So good
man,
stuff.
I didn't realize you were a celebrity running stuff over there in Missouri.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Crazy stuff here in Missouri.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You and JJ got to talk the ham talk, which
geek radio, as everybody refers to it.
Yeah, I caught about 10% of that. And that's being very nice to myself because I really don't think I caught that much. But that stuff actually really interests me, and I think hopefully once this Wi-Fi stuff kind of calms down a little bit, I can start looking into it. I actually looked in here in Memphis. There is a apparently a pretty active ham community, so I should be able to find some guys maybe kind of hang out. Might be interesting.
Yeah, I will say you'll definitely learn something. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a great little niche group to get involved with. So.
All right, cool. Well, as always, shoot us any questions, any comments you guys have. If you want to send us cash, that always works too. And thanks everybody. Bye.